You feel the atmosphere before you name it. A sacred stillness, not empty silence but charged air, like a veil being pulled back just enough for your eyes to glimpse beyond the ordinary. This isn't about fear, accusation, or the temptation to lash out. It is about God's mercy pressing through the shadows to guard your path before harm multiplies. You are being asked to pause in the holy hush, because sometimes the most protective act heaven can perform is to reveal what others tried to bury. Exposure in the kingdom is never entertainment. It is not gossip dressed in religious language. It is not humiliation broadcast for others to mock. When heaven uncovers, it is always surgical, precise, intentional cutting, not to wound, but to heal. You have stepped into a moment where the familiar face of your sister is being reframed under divine light, not so that you despise her, but so that you finally see clearly. Mercy does not hide from the truth. Mercy makes the truth bearable. You may recall subtle unease in your own spirit, tiny tugs that didn't line up with her smile, laughter that rang hollow, the way your body would tense without explanation. Those weren't accidents. Those were the first whispers of heaven, asking you to lean closer, to trust your discernment when the surface seemed convincing. This is why you're here now, sitting in the clarity of God's timing, not because you sought dirt on her, but because the Lord has decided you must walk in safety. Notice how exposure is framed, not as an execution, but as a shield. You are not being armed with a sword to destroy her character. You are being given a lantern to walk the path without stumbling. In the hush of this moment, heaven reminds you that truth is not an enemy. Truth is your ally. You don't need to run, rage, or recoil. You need to breathe. This unveiling has come because you are chosen to carry the weight of knowledge with grace, not with panic. Think of it this way. If a house fire begins in one hidden corner, a loving parent doesn't shame the child who knocked over the candle. They call out the danger, usher everyone to safety, and then work toward restoration. That is how God operates. He reveals not to humiliate your sister, but to rescue both of you from flames that would have spread unseen. This perspective shifts everything. You are not standing in a courtroom where judgment is passed. You are standing at the threshold of safety, where light has arrived before the smoke consumes. It is tempting to view this moment as betrayal, but heaven urges you to hold a different frame. What is surfacing now is not designed to fracture your bond forever, but to confront what cannot be ignored. Only by facing it can healing have any chance of entering. The hush is God's way of slowing you down, so you don't react too fast, speak too harshly, or carry bitterness that poisons you more than her secrecy ever could. This is the opening of a journey, not its conclusion. By learning to embrace exposure as mercy, you train your soul to see with divine perspective. Every hidden thing unveiled in your life from this point forward can be met with the same understanding. This is God's shield, not His whip. The sooner you internalize that, the steadier you will stand in the days ahead. So breathe, chosen one. Accept that heaven is not embarrassing you, nor embarrassing her. Heaven is intervening. The light has come, not to condemn, but to protect. And in that protection, there is peace for you, and perhaps in time, redemption for her. You've been noticing it for longer than you realize, that strange chill that lingers even when the air is warm, the way your sleep has felt restless without cause, the heaviness that presses on your chest at random moments. None of it is coincidence. These are not just moods, not just fatigue, not just random turns of emotion. They are signals, whispers from the spirit realm, nudging your awareness toward what has been hiding in plain sight. Discernment often disguises itself as discomfort. You sense something before you can name it, and because you can't point to hard evidence, you doubt yourself. But heaven wants you to reframe that inner questioning. You are not paranoid, you are perceptive. That shift you felt in her laughter, the hollowness that echoed under her words, the way your body tensed without explanation, these were early indicators. God has been training your spirit to listen with more than your ears. Think back to how many times you dismissed your intuition because you didn't want to believe it could be true. Perhaps you thought, I'm overthinking, I'm being too suspicious. But discernment is rarely dramatic. It doesn't shout, it nudges. It pricks at the edges of your peace until you pay attention. The tension in your body is often the Spirit of God alerting you that what looks ordinary has a shadow attached. Now, consider the atmosphere itself. Rooms carry memory. Spaces absorb energy. That's why you can walk into a place where two people just argued and feel the residue without hearing a word. Your home has been carrying signals. The restless sleep, the random waves of fatigue, the chills that pass over you, they are not random. They are the evidence of something unspoken seeping through. You are being taught to interpret these cues not as fear, but as guidance. Here is how you separate anxiety from discernment. Anxiety spirals into confusion, but discernment always sharpens clarity. Anxiety makes you feel small, powerless, overwhelmed. Discernment grounds you, even when it unsettles you. It says, pay attention, but do not panic. That is the voice you have been hearing lately. It's why your suspicions about your sister never fully went away. Heaven has been speaking through the atmosphere. This is not about stalking her steps or obsessing over details. It is about trusting the ways heaven communicates through restlessness, through silence, through a sudden pause in the rhythm of life. You have been given spiritual ears, and they are tuning to frequencies others dismiss. The hollow ring in her laughter was not just an odd moment. It was the atmosphere signaling that something didn't align. The late-night stirring of your spirit wasn't just insomnia. It was discernment whispering that hidden things were beginning to leak into your environment. Understand this. The body itself often becomes the messenger. A racing heart, unexplained shivers, sudden waves of fatigue. These aren't always biological coincidences. Sometimes they are divine alerts. Your soul is more attuned than you realize, and heaven uses even your physical senses as tools of revelation. The mistake most people make is to medicate the symptom and miss the signal. But you are different. You are chosen. You have been entrusted with heightened perception, not so you collapse under it, but so you can protect what is sacred. So now, instead of dismissing the strange energy shifts, you are being trained to read them. Not everything your body feels is discernment, but when your spirit confirms it, you'll know. The unease that keeps repeating, the patterns that won't let go, that's not just emotion. That is heaven telling you, pay closer attention. Let this bring you peace instead of panic. You are not left guessing in the dark. You are not abandoned to figure things out with no help. Heaven has been equipping you all along, through the subtle cues of the atmosphere, through the still small voice that keeps speaking in ways you can feel but not always explain. This is your reassurance. What you've been sensing is real, and you are not crazy for noticing it. You are discerning, you are aligned, you are awake. Patterns rarely announce themselves with noise. They build in silence, one tiny decision layered upon another until what began as a seed grows into something with roots and consequences. What you are feeling about your sister isn't born of a single shocking revelation. It is the recognition of a slow progression, a hidden pattern that has been weaving itself quietly in the background. Heaven shows you this not to scare you, but to reveal how small beginnings can carry great weight if left unaddressed. 6 months ago, she made a choice. It may have looked insignificant at the time, just a small alignment, a subtle agreement, a conversation that seemed harmless, but in the unseen, a doorway cracked open. Once a doorway is open, what passes through can multiply without being noticed. Like water seeping under a closed door, the influence begins subtly, and by the time you sense the dampness, the entire room has shifted. Your discernment is recognizing not just an event, but a trajectory. A pattern is a path that starts invisible and becomes obvious only when it has already shaped a life. Heaven is revealing this now so you can understand where things are headed before it's too late. This is why you've been nudged to pay attention. This is why your peace has been interrupted, not to make you suspicious, but to make you wise. The story of patterns is always the same. A thought becomes a secret becomes a habit becomes an atmosphere, and an atmosphere begins to affect everyone who walks into it. That is what has been happening. Your sister, without realizing the full consequences, has been nurturing something in secret. Not because she is inherently wicked, but because she is wounded. Wounded people often reach for things God never approved, but mercy means exposure comes before collapse. Heaven is pulling the curtain back so you can see the cause, not just the symptom. It wants you to understand why you've been feeling the way you have, why your energy dips around her, why your peace drains unexpectedly, why your spirit trembles at night. These are not random. They are the outflow of a hidden root. And hidden roots, if left untouched, produce bitter fruit. This isn't about punishing her. This is about protecting both of you. When patterns are exposed early, they can be uprooted before they destroy trust beyond repair. You are being positioned as a steward of truth. You are not an accuser. You are a witness. You are not called to gossip. You are called to intercede. God is showing you the pattern so that when the moment comes, you can act from understanding, not from reaction. Think of the parable of planting and harvesting. Seeds don't sprout overnight, but when the conditions are right, they suddenly break the surface. What you are about to see in your sister's life is the sprouting of seeds sown months ago. This is why heaven urges patience and composure. A seed can still be pulled before it grows into a tree, but once it's a tree, it takes more effort to uproot. You are catching this at the seedling stage. That is mercy. Recognizing the pattern also helps you release false guilt. You didn't cause this. You didn't miss a sign. You didn't fail as a sibling. The pattern began outside of your control. But heaven is showing it to you now because your response can shift the outcome. If you hold your peace, if you stay anchored, if you respond with calm truth, the pattern can be interrupted before it locks both of you into deeper damage. So breathe again. Let this knowledge settle. You are not here to diagnose her life, but to guard yours, and, when the time is right, to offer a bridge back to light. By seeing the pattern clearly, you protect yourself from manipulation, and you protect her from falling so far she cannot find her way back easily. This is how heaven works. It reveals in whispers, in stages, so you are prepared to act with wisdom instead of shock. What began as hidden is now surfacing. What grew in silence is now being named, and once named, it can be healed. That is the promise buried in this unveiling. When heaven speaks about timing, it never does so to frighten or to trap you in obsession. It does so to prepare you. You have already heard whispers about 3 days, within 48 hours, or 7 days. But pause and breathe. These numbers are not countdowns to disaster. They are windows of awareness, moments where the unseen begins to brush against the seen, offering you confirmation that what you felt in your spirit was real. Think of it this way. When clouds gather on the horizon, You don't panic because rain is inevitable. You simply prepare. You close the windows, bring things inside, maybe grab an umbrella. The same is true here. The timing heaven reveals is not designed to spark fear, but to invite readiness. A sign may appear in the form of something ordinary, a late-night call, a brief text, a small withdrawal of money, a message tucked away where you least expected. To the untrained eye, these details seem harmless, but to you, with sharpened discernment, they will carry weight. The mistake many make is to overinterpret every small occurrence. That is not what you're being asked to do. You are being called to notice, not to chase. Awareness, not paranoia. If a moment catches your attention, pause, breathe, pray. Let your spirit filter the meaning before your emotions speak too loudly. You are not being asked to confront at every sign, but to catalogue them silently, to let them form a pattern in front of you, so that when clarity arrives, you won't doubt it. There is wisdom in restraint. When Joseph discovered Mary was carrying what he didn't understand, Scripture tells us he considered acting quietly. Heaven intervened with clarity before he moved. The same principle applies here. God does not want you to react from confusion. He wants you to wait until peace confirms the step. That's why timing matters, not to bind you to a clock, but to align you with heaven's rhythm. So if something unfolds within 3 days, let it confirm your discernment, not rattle your faith. If the atmosphere shifts within 48 hours after that, let it strengthen your trust that heaven has gone before you. If, within 7 days, a truth surfaces that pierces you, remember, it is not exposure to shame, it is revelation for your safety. Do not let these windows become obsessions. Do not sit awake watching the clock, analyzing every move she makes. That would only entangle you in fear. Instead, hold time loosely as an instrument of grace. The point is not the calendar, the point is the confirmation. God is not late, He is precise. And when the sign comes, it will be gentle but undeniable. Think of it as a hinge moment. Doors swing not because you force them, but because the hinge is aligned. These windows of time are hinges. When the moment arrives, the door will open naturally, and you will know. Until then, you are called to stay grounded, to keep peace in your heart, and to remember that revelation unfolds in layers, not in one loud explosion. So, prepare without panic, expect without obsession, notice without accusing. Let the timing guide you like a lantern in the dark, not a fire that burns, but a steady light that shows the way one step at a time. When truth begins to surface, your first instinct might be to demand explanations, to corner her, to speak louder, to force the moment into the open. But heaven urges the opposite. Stillness is not weakness, it is strategy. Your calm presence will do more to unravel deception than 1,000 heated words ever could. Picture a pond on a windless morning. The surface is so still that even the smallest ripple reveals what moves beneath. That is the power of your stillness. In silence, the truth that has been hiding finds itself exposed, unable to stay beneath the surface. But if you thrash the waters with rage, everything becomes murky again. You lose clarity, and the truth hides deeper. That is why God calls you to hold your composure. Stillness doesn't mean silence forever. It means waiting until the Spirit tells you the words to speak. When the moment of confrontation comes, and yes, it will come, you will not need to script a speech. Instead, you'll lean into questions that disarm rather than accuse. You might say, "Help me understand," instead of, "Why did you lie?" You might reflect gently, "I've noticed a shift between us," rather than declaring, "You've betrayed me." Words like these invite honesty without inflaming defensiveness. But even beyond words, your demeanor carries prophetic weight. The calm in your eyes, the steady tone of your voice, the way you choose to breathe instead of explode, all of it signals that heaven has already aligned your spirit. You are not at her mercy. You are not trapped in her choices. You stand under divine covering, and she will sense it. Your restraint will speak louder than accusation. Practical wisdom also matters here. Do not confront in isolation if your safety could be compromised. Consider neutral ground. Consider the presence of a trusted witness, even if unseen. Sometimes the Holy Spirit himself becomes that witness, filling the room with a peace that cannot be denied. Other times, God may nudge you to invite a family elder, a mentor, or a close confidant who carries discernment. Obedience in these details will protect you from unnecessary escalation. Think of Moses before Pharaoh. He did not storm into the palace screaming. He came with authority, speaking only what God instructed. Each word carried weight, not because of volume, but because of alignment. That same principle is for you now. When you confront, your strength will not be in force, but in precision. Heaven will guide your words so that they pierce without shattering, reveal without humiliating, and invite without condemning. And here is the mystery. Your stillness unsettles what hides. Deception thrives on chaos. Lies survive where there is noise. But when you refuse to be baited into shouting matches, the mask slips. The truth finds no shelter. That is why the enemy tries to provoke you into anger, because anger blurs sight. But peace sharpens sight, until even the smallest twitch betrays what is real. So begin practicing stillness now, in prayer, in daily conversations, in your own thoughts. Let your spirit anchor deeper each day so that when the moment comes, you do not tremble outwardly, even if you shake within. Your stillness will be your shield, your calm will be your weapon, and your presence, steady and unhurried, will echo heaven's authority louder than any raised voice ever could. Breathe deeply, chosen one. Stillness is not doing nothing. Stillness is doing the exact thing that disarms darkness, and in your restraint, heaven will speak. You cannot carry someone else's choices on your back, no matter how much you love them. Love without boundaries becomes a doorway for chaos, and heaven is not calling you to chaos. It is calling you to peace. Boundaries are not punishments. They are blessings, lines that keep the holy within and the harmful without. Think of your home as a sanctuary. Every sanctuary has gates. Not everyone can walk in unexamined, and not every object can cross the threshold unchecked. The same applies to your life. Emotional, financial, digital, and spiritual gates must be guarded. When your sister made decisions that stepped outside of God's approval, the effects began bleeding into your atmosphere. That is why you felt unsettled. But now you are being shown how to guard the sanctuary of your soul without closing the door to restoration. Start with emotional boundaries. You are not her dumping ground. You are not responsible to absorb her unresolved turmoil. You can listen with compassion, but you cannot let her storms dictate your weather. This doesn't mean you grow cold. It means you stay steady. Respond with calm phrases like, "I hear you," without feeling obligated to fix what she refuses to face. Emotional restraint is an act of love because it teaches her that peace is possible even in the midst of conflict. Then there are financial boundaries. Perhaps she has leaned on you for help or pressured you into small compromises. Guard this gate carefully. Money often carries spiritual weight. If you continue funding dysfunction, you unknowingly sow into it. If you stand firm, you create space for her to face her choices honestly. Provide assistance only when it aligns with wisdom and does not compromise your peace. Digital boundaries matter more than ever. Devices carry traces of energy, messages, images, searches. All of it leaves a spiritual imprint. Do not give unrestricted access to your digital world. Guard your passwords, your accounts, your online presence. What may seem like a small concession could open a spiritual doorway wider than you intended. Protect what heaven entrusted to you in this age: your name, your privacy, your digital identity. And yes, spiritual boundaries are the foundation of them all. Anoint your space with prayer. Dedicate the thresholds of your home to God's peace. Invite only what aligns with His presence. If conversations turn manipulative, excuse yourself with grace. If visits leave your spirit heavy, limit them until the atmosphere shifts. Boundaries are not rejection, they are invitations for healthier connection. When you guard the perimeter, love inside the gate grows purer. Understand this truth. Boundaries are not walls of hatred, they are fences of wisdom. A fence doesn't mean stay away forever. It means enter through the right gate, in the right spirit, at the right time. This protects you, but it also gives her a chance to return on healthier terms. Without boundaries, the same cycles repeat endlessly. With them, space for healing emerges. So do not feel guilty for drawing these lines. Guilt is the enemy's way of convincing you that protecting your peace is selfish. But even Jesus withdrew often to pray. Even He knew the power of stepping back to restore strength. If the Son of God modeled boundaries, so must you. Take courage, chosen one. By setting boundaries, you are not severing ties, you are sanctifying them. You are giving your sister the dignity of facing truth on her own, while keeping your heart safe from the overflow of her choices. And as you do this, blessings flow, peace lingers, clarity sharpens. Love, instead of being drained, begins to renew. Boundaries that bless are the soil where restoration can finally take root. Every family carries invisible stories, quiet fractures that shape how siblings see one another. For your sister, part of what has been hidden is not only her actions but the wound beneath them, a jealousy buried so deep, even she may not recognize it. Jealousy rarely begins as malice. It begins as a whisper. Why them? Not me. Why does their light seem to shine brighter? Why do they get noticed when I feel unseen? Left unspoken, those whispers become roots, and roots unaddressed grow into vines that choke trust. Perhaps you remember a childhood moment, a teacher's praise that landed on you but skipped her, a gift that you received while she felt overlooked, a word from a parent that seemed to favor your path over hers. These small fractures planted seeds of comparison. Over the years, the seed hardened into a pattern. She may smile, laugh, and carry on as if nothing lingers. But heaven saw when envy silently bent her perception. Comparison always distorts love. Instead of celebrating your wins, she may have felt them as her losses. Instead of seeing your blessings as encouragement, she may have felt them as indictments. None of this makes her evil. It makes her wounded. And wounded hearts, if not healed, reach for ungodly alignments to fill the gap. That is what has been happening behind the surface. Heaven is not revealing this so you despise her. It is revealing it so you understand the deeper current. You can love her without enabling her choices. You can hold compassion while refusing to be manipulated. By naming jealousy for what it is, you strip it of its hidden power. Once exposed, envy loses its disguise. Your role is not to feed rivalry, but to bless. Pray that her eyes would see her own worth apart from comparison. Pray that the old wound be touched by grace. Speak life over her when given the chance, not flattery, but truth, that she carries her own purpose, her own divine imprint. Even if she resists hearing it, Your words plant seeds heaven can water later. But remember this, chosen one. Compassion does not erase boundaries. Recognizing the wound doesn't mean excusing the behavior. Understanding the root doesn't mean ignoring the fruit. You can forgive while still holding space. You can intercede while still protecting yourself. That balance is what heaven is teaching you. Think of Joseph and his brothers. Their jealousy led to betrayal, but God used it to position Joseph for greater purpose. In the end, restoration came, not through denial of the pain, but through divine orchestration that turned envy into reconciliation. The same pattern can unfold here. What was meant to divide can become the soil of redemption, but it begins with clarity. So do not carry her envy as your burden. Do not let comparison's poison seep into your soul. Stand in your light unapologetically, but also intercede for her healing. Heaven sees the wound behind her choices, and heaven is not finished with her. By understanding the undercurrent, you protect your heart from bitterness, and you position yourself as an instrument of mercy rather than judgment. This is where old wounds lose their grip. This is where love begins to untangle rivalry. And this is where heaven reminds you, you were chosen not to dominate, but to deliver. What you face now is not only about her choices, it is about the current running through your bloodline, a cycle older than either of you, a pattern that sought to repeat itself until someone strong enough stood up and said, "No more." That someone is you. Families often carry hidden contracts, agreements made in silence, wounds handed down like heirlooms. A grandmother's bitterness can echo in a granddaughter's voice. A father's secrecy can resurface in a son's silence. These things pass invisibly, like smoke through the cracks, until one heart awakened by God begins to break the pattern. That is what heaven has assigned you to do. Repair not only for yourself, but for generations before and after you. This is why the unveiling feels so heavy. It isn't only about your sister hiding something. It is about a chain stretching back further than you can see, being severed now through your obedience. You were born into this family not by chance, but by assignment. The discernment you carry, the weight you feel, it is heaven's tool to cleanse what others ignored. You are not the first to feel the atmosphere shift. You are simply the first to remain awake long enough to respond. Repair begins with recognition. When you acknowledge that the struggle you see in her is not random but generational, you strip it of its camouflage. You stop taking it personally and start addressing it spiritually. The jealousy, the secrecy, the envy, the unspoken competition, they didn't begin with her. They are echoes. And echoes lose their power when someone refuses to repeat the sound. So heaven teaches you rituals of repair, simple, steady acts that anchor new patterns. Anoint the thresholds of your home with oil, literal or symbolic, as a way of declaring, only peace may enter here. Speak blessings over your bloodline each morning, even if your voice trembles. Walk through your rooms and name aloud what will not continue. Fear stops here, envy stops here, silence stops here. Write down dreams, patterns, and nudges that come, because heaven often hides answers in fragments that piece together over time. Generational repair also means choosing forgiveness, not because it excuses, but because it interrupts. If you refuse to forgive, bitterness becomes the new cycle. But if you release, even while maintaining boundaries, you cut off the oxygen that keeps the old pattern alive. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is demolition. It collapses the structure jealousy built so long ago. Understand this, when heaven involves you in generational work, it also covers you with generational protection. Angels do not stand by idly when a bloodline breaker rises. They encamp around you, ensuring that the assignment completes. You will feel pressure, yes, but you will also feel strength that is not your own. So walk forward with confidence. You are not repairing alone. Every act of clarity, every moment of restraint, every prayer spoken in faith is stitching a new fabric for those who come after you. Children, nieces, nephews, future generations, they will live freer because you chose to face what others avoided. And here is the promise. Once the repair begins, heaven accelerates. What felt delayed for years will suddenly unfold. Blessings long postponed will flow without obstruction, because when cycles are broken, inheritance is released. You are not just protecting yourself, you are unlocking what heaven reserved for your entire family line. Chosen one, you are the hinge, you are the turning point, and your obedience now is rewriting the story of those who carry your name. Discernment isn't a one-time flash of insight. It is a skill, a rhythm, a posture of the soul that must be tended daily if it is to remain sharp. What heaven has revealed about your sister is only one unveiling. There will be others across your life, different faces, different circumstances, different atmospheres, and you will need the same clarity then as you do now. That's why heaven is training you not just to see once, but to maintain sight. Begin with your body. Sleep matters. Rest is not laziness. It is spiritual defense. Fatigue dulls discernment. When your body is run down, your spirit still speaks, but your mind scrambles the message. Set a rhythm of rest, not only for recovery, but for revelation. Dreams often carry coded guidance. Keep a notebook by your bed. Write quickly, even if the images seem strange. Later, when clarity comes, those fragments will form a map. Anchor yourself in Scripture, but not with rigid recitation. Let the words wash through you, paraphrased into your own language, so they become living truths rather than distant verses. For example, instead of repeating a line exactly, remind yourself, God is peace, not confusion. His voice steadies me, not shakes me. By keeping truth in fresh words, you guard against monotony and allow revelation to stay alive. Community is another safeguard. Lone discernment can drift into paranoia. Shared discernment sharpens truth. Choose one or two trusted voices, mentors, spiritual guides, prayer partners who can confirm what you sense. When you bring your impressions into light, deception has less room to twist them. Do not announce everything widely. Discernment is not entertainment. Share selectively with those mature enough to handle sacred weight. Build accountability rhythms. Once a week, reflect on your emotions. Ask, what drained me? What lifted me? Where did I sense unease? Where did I ignore a nudge? These questions train your awareness. Discernment often comes in hindsight at first, but reflection brings foresight. The more you notice, the earlier you catch the patterns. Protect your inputs, the media you consume, the voices you entertain, the music you allow. All of these tune your inner frequency. If your atmosphere feels cluttered, simplify. Create space where heaven can whisper without being drowned out. Even silence is a teacher. Do not fear it. Use moments of quiet to check in. What is my spirit sensing right now? Finally, cultivate gratitude. Gratitude might seem unrelated, but it is a stabilizer. When envy or bitterness attempt to cloud your discernment, gratitude clears the haze. By naming what God has done, you remind your soul that He is present, active, trustworthy. Gratitude strengthens peace, and peace sharpens perception. Remember, discernment is not paranoia dressed in spiritual clothes. It is steady awareness shaped by practice, confirmed by peace, and guided by God's Spirit. As you maintain it daily, you will notice that what once startled you now feels natural. The chills, the sudden heaviness, the quiet tugs in conversation, they no longer throw you off balance. They become signals you know how to read, guides you know how to follow. Chosen one, this is your maintenance plan. Rest, scripture rephrased, community, reflection, guarded inputs, and gratitude. Follow these rhythms, and your discernment will not fade after this moment passes. It will grow sharper, steadier, and more reliable, preparing you for every unveiling yet to come. By now you see that heaven never reveals for spectacle. It always reveals for transformation. What began as an unveiling of what your sister has been hiding was never about destruction, it was about restoration. But restoration doesn't appear instantly. It unfolds like dawn, slow, steady, gentle, revealing more light with each passing moment. Exposure is the first step. It clears the fog. It brings what was hidden into the open. Without exposure, deception festers. With exposure, clarity breathes. But clarity by itself isn't enough. It must lead somewhere. It must turn toward healing. That is where your calling steps in, not as a judge, not as an executioner, but as a restorer. Restoration begins with honesty. When the hidden thing surfaces, your role is not to deny it or dress it in softer language. Acknowledge the truth, but acknowledge it in peace. Let your stillness hold weight. Speak with compassion, but also firmness. I see what has been hidden, I know what has been avoided, and I choose truth over silence. That posture disarms shame. It declares that love can survive, even after lies lose their power. The next stage is testing. Every relationship that has endured deception must walk through a season where words are measured against actions. Do not rush this. Do not accept apologies without observing consistency. Restoration is not built on a single emotional moment. It is built on repeated alignment over time. Give her space to show sincerity, and give yourself permission to wait for proof. Then comes rebuilding. Rebuilding means setting clear milestones, honesty in conversation, transparency in choices, accountability in actions. These milestones are not chains, they are scaffolds. Just as scaffolding holds a structure while it strengthens, boundaries hold a relationship while it heals. Over time, as the structure grows sturdy again, the scaffolds can be removed. Yet even if rebuilding falters, restoration is still possible in another form. Sometimes restoration does not mean reconciliation of the relationship, but restoration of your peace. Even if she resists, denies, or delays, heaven ensures that you will not remain bound. You will be free, clear, and steady, carrying no bitterness. Restoration is not dependent on her choice, it is anchored in yours. You can forgive without reopening every door. You can release without abandoning love. This is why heaven entrusted you with discernment. You carry the ability to hold both truth and mercy, to speak without wounding, to protect without condemning. This balance is rare, but you were chosen to live it. And as you do, your family line begins to shift. Generational wounds give way to generational healing. So see the bigger picture. Exposure was never the end. It was the doorway. Through it, peace re-enters your home. Through it, blessings long delayed find their way back. Through it, you step fully into your assignment as a restorer, a bloodline breaker, a carrier of truth that heals rather than harms. Chosen one, you have walked through unveiling. Now you walk toward restoration. And every step forward from here is marked by heaven's assurance. What was hidden has lost its power, and what is true will endure. Take a breath now, chosen one. Let the intensity of what has been revealed soften into calm assurance. You do not need to replay every detail or anticipate every outcome. Heaven has already stepped ahead of you, clearing what once blocked your peace. What was hidden is no longer in control. What weighed heavy is already being lifted. This is your invitation to rest, not the shallow rest that comes from distraction, but the deep rest that anchors in God's presence. You have done your part. You stayed present. You listened. You allowed truth to find you. That is obedience enough. Now, let the Spirit carry what your hands were never designed to hold. Remember, your sister's journey is her own, and her healing is between her and God. You are not her savior. You are her sibling. Your role is to remain grounded in truth, to walk in peace, to hold love without losing boundaries. That balance is your gift, and it will sustain you in the days ahead. If your spirit still trembles, let that trembling be prayer. If tears rise, let them fall as release, not despair. Healing rarely arrives in one dramatic moment. It comes in waves, in whispers, in small signs that confirm you are on the right path. Trust those signs. They will appear. And now, as you move forward, carry this blessing. May your home be marked by peace. May your discernment remain sharp. And may your love be protected from manipulation. What has been exposed has no authority to linger. Light has entered, and where light dwells, shadows cannot remain. This is not just an ending. It is a reset, a shift in atmosphere, a generational turning. Walk from this moment lighter, clearer, and aligned with heaven's rhythm. The restoration you longed for has already begun, first in you, and soon through you.